Hello and welcome to the OriginMD channel. In this video we're going to be discussing Esper Control. And first off we have the removal. So we've got the Fatal Push and Vraska's Contempt. That's some of the best removal that we have had in black. We've also got a whole array of counterspells, including the Essence Scatter and Disallow, to prevent our opponent from realizing their threats. We have the board wipes that help us clear out the field. And then we have the finishes that help us close out the game. Let's go over some general strategies on how you want to play against other decks. Against aggressive creatures and resilient threats, you want to play out the exile effects and the board wipes. Against resilient threats, you want to use the exile effects and recur them with the Torrential Gearhulk to prevent them from coming back from the graveyard. Against mid-range decks, you want to take out the key creatures and key enablers, and you want to take care of the key threats in the late game. So for cards like the Winding Constrictor and the Siphoner, you want to use the Fatal Push, and for the big threats like the Scarab God or let's say Lyra or Dawnbringer, you want to either counter them or exile them. Usually that's your best matchup. Against control, you want to disable your opponent's search for Azcanta, and you want to prevent him from realizing his finishes. But essentially a game against control is a game of counterspells and advantage. You don't want to play any of your own threats without having a counterspell up, and you want to have as much card advantage as possible and as many answers as possible to your opponent. The one who has the most patience and who knows which threats to realize first is going to win this matchup. Now let's discuss each card in more detail. We'll start off with the Fatal Push. It's a spell that allows us to spend 1 black mana on destroying a creature that has converted mana cost 2 or less. So that means that not only does it take care of the small creatures, it also takes care of vehicles, and you definitely want this spell in your hand if you're playing against the Heart of Kiran, for example, and you are on the draw. If we have a permanent that has left the battlefield on our side, we can also destroy a creature with a converted mana cost of 4. So if you are playing Evolving Wilds, then you can also crack them and use the Fatal Push to get rid of bigger threats. Then we have the Syncopate. If we can counter a spell unless our opponent pays X, and if it was countered, then we can exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So that's going to be quite useful against creatures that can come back from the graveyard like Earthshaker Kenra and Scraptive Scrounger. And maybe even some bigger threats if we have some more mana. And definitely you want to play this, and if your opponent doesn't respect you having this card, then this can be their undoing. On to the 2-drops, we have Censor. We will counter a spell unless our opponent pays 1, and if we are already late in the game and it's not very useful, then we can cycle it away for 1 blue and draw a card instead. And we can do that at instant speed, so that is going to be quite good for us. We have the small counterspell package. For only 2 mana we can counter a creature spell with Essence Scatter, and we can counter a non-creature spell with Negate. Now, depending on how the meta shakes out, you want to include more or less of those. We have 2 Search for Azcantas, and if you're able to resolve the Search for Azcanta on turn 2, then this is definitely looking good for you, because you get to scry every single time with Search for Azcanta, and if you have 7 or more cards you can transform it, you get an additional land that can grant you blue mana, and you can spend 3 mana and tap it to look at the top 4 cards of your library, and you can reveal a non-creature, non-land card from it, so one of your spells, and you have so many in your deck, and then untap and use it when you need to. So definitely a card to watch out for, and you want to protect it against something like the Field of Ruin in case your opponent has it and you had drawn it. We also have the Cast Down that destroys a non-legendary creature, and this is going to be useful against cards that cannot be against creatures that cannot be destroyed with Fatal Push. So cards like Chain Whirler and some of the other non-legendaries that can really threaten you can be taken down with Cast Down. As for the counterspells, we have the Disallow that not only counters a target spell, it can also target an activated ability or triggered ability. And this line of text should not be underestimated, because you can counter, for example, Bombard Courier's ability if he has something like 9 cards on it, and then he sacrifices it to try and draw them. You can simply disallow and prevent this from happening. Or you can prevent something like the Scarab God coming back from the graveyard to your opponent's hand. So definitely a spell to play all 4 of, since we have got them. On to our removal package, we have Vraska's Contempt, that exiles a target creature or planeswalker at instant speed and you gain 2 life. And that is going to be extremely important in the current meta, especially when you have so many creatures that come back from the graveyards, and planeswalkers are plenty as well. If you have more Vraska's Contempt, definitely go for 3 or 4 if you have them. We also have Settle the Wreckage, and if our opponent attacks, we exile all attacking creature he controls, and then he searches his library for that many basic land cards and puts them onto the battlefield tab and shuffles their library. We still want to run at least 3 of those in this list, because this way we are able to really stem the aggro, and the aggressive decks have to respect that you have settled the wreckage. If they don't, it can be a blowout, because even though they get more basic lands, the longer the game goes, the higher the chances you are going to win. Finally, we have the Glimmer of Genius for our 4 CMC spells. We get to scry 2, then draw 2 cards, and we get 2 energy counters. Now, the first two lines of text are going to be extremely relevant, since it is important to be able to filter out and draw and maintain the card advantage in our deck. And usually on turn 4, you want to keep either the Settle the Wreckage or Glimmer of Genius, depending on how the game goes. Judging by how my games went, I would consider getting 1 more Glimmer of Genius in the deck as well. I'm not too sure what I would take out instead of it, maybe 1 Cast Down, and that is definitely a card that you have to consider including in your Esper list. As for our finishes, we've got the Scarab God that allows us to exile a creature from a graveyard and create a token that is going to be a 4/4 zombie. And when it dies, we can return it to our hand at the beginning of the next end step. So definitely a good resilient threat, and 5/5 for 5 is also nothing to scoff at. The truth for all the finishes is that you probably don't want to play them straight away. If you can help it, you want to play them once you have something like a Negate to protect them, or something like a Disallow that will protect them. We've got Teferi Hero Dominaria, our planeswalker that allows us to maintain the card advantage. For +1 ability, he allows you to draw a card at the beginning of the next end step and tap 2 lands. So definitely want to play at the very least 2 of Teferi. You can go as high as 4 if you want to, but I have found that it's not such an endgame card that you would want all 4 of them for sure. We've got other ways to close out the game sooner. And I have also included 2 Fumigates that destroy all creatures, and we gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way, because in the current meta it seems like creatures still mostly exist, and we are able to gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way, so greedy lists that simply flood the board with lots of tokens are not going to love the Fumigate at all. Finally, rounding it all up, we have the Torrential Gearhulk. It has flash, so it can be played on your opponent's turn, and when it enters the battlefield you may cast an instant from the graveyard without paying its mana cost, and then you have to exile it. So that means that our Settle the Wreckages if we need to remove our opponent's attacking creatures, or Glimmer of Geniuses if we want to draw cards, or Vraska's Contempts if we want to exile some creatures or planeswalkers, or Disallows, can be replayed again, and this ability should really not be underestimated. I'm going to include a short clip from the game I had with black and green Saprolinks to showcase just how powerful the Torrential Gearhulk can be. Okay, as for our mana base, we have 3 plains, 4 islands, 4 swamps, and that's it for the basics. I have 2 Glacial Fortresses that come into play untapped if we have a plains or an island. We have the Irrigated Farmland that enters the battlefield tapped, but it can be cycled. And it's also a plains island, so that means we are able to play out the Irrigated Farmland tapped and then the Glacial Fortress untapped. I have 4 Isolated Chapels, simply because I have those untapped dual lands, and because we have quite a lot of white in our Esper deck. I have only 1 Drowned Catacomb, and it comes into play untapped if we control an island or a swamp. And I have 4 Submerged Boneyards that come into play tapped, and of course you definitely want to replace them all with the Drowned Catacombs and Fetid Pools, if you can help it. And we've got 2 Field of Ruin to be able to take out our opponent's lands, such as Search for Azcanta. So this is the deck, and now let's play. Just going to record some Scarab God shenanigans. 1, 2, 3, 4. Use Scarab God's ability. Going to take... I only have 1 Hulk, so let's look at the opponent's graveyard. Get the Slime Foot stowaway, so that we have the Torrential Gearhulk so that we can counterspell our opponent. Let's go for the Spore Crown Thudded. Actually, it should be enough to close out the game. Let's just, instead of worrying, get one of the subherds. So we're the Saproling Tribal now, Saproling Zombie Tribal. Okay, so let's cry down the lands since we already have too many of them. Disallow is nice. Attack with everything. It's interesting, they don't retain the other Saproling creature type. Now for the bonus nice points, we're going to activate our own Torrential Gearhulk. With the Torrential Gearhulk, we're going to take Disallow, and we're going to get rid of the Fatal Push. So the nice points are here. Then we reanimate the rest of the board with our Scarab God, and that should be game. Metallic Mimic, doesn't matter much. We can say Zombie. And that's game. Alright, our opponent goes first. Let's keep this hand because we have all the calls we need and Search for Azcanta. So hopefully our opponent that has mulliganed to 6 won't have too explosive of a start and will allow us to play the game a bit. But he starts off with a mountain, so this might be a red deck that really punishes slow starts. So 2 red and nothing else. Alright, that was quite interesting. Let's go for the untapped land and Search for Azcanta. And see what's next. 3 lands and the Chain Whirler. Okay. So it sends probably to the graveyard. Another Censor. Alright. Let's play it out tapped. And then go to our opponent's turn. We do have the Fumigate, So that's quite nice. We're going to take 3 damage here. No question and no doubt about this. Right, doesn't do anything else. Interesting. Do we cycle with Censor? I think we do. Okay, Fatal Push is nice against the red deck wins. Glimmer of Genius is good in our library, so we're going to draw that. Play out the Isolated Chapel and go to our opponent's turn. Our opponent can attack, and I think I'm not going to be blocking, just going to take 3. Interesting. Opponent is not just going to play anything, so we're going to Glimmer of Genius. So 2 lands. I think we can scribe both of them down. We've got all the colors and everything else we need. Alright, that's definitely something we want to draw. I'm actually thinking that I'm going to be fine just not playing out anything right now, since we can just Vraska's Contempt the Chain Whirler, and then we can recycle it with the Torrential Gearhulk, and we have another one in hand. So this we are definitely just going to Disallow. And our Fatal Push works against only low-cost creatures, so we're going to have to take the damage. Okay, we can take an extra land. It comes into play tapped, unfortunately, but that's still going to be fine. Okay, another Chandra. So we don't really have the Torrential Gearhulk we can use right now. Adds 2 black, 2 red mana. Has a Bombard Courier. Alright, it looks like the most effective way right now would be to allow this to happen and to use Settle the Wreckage. So our opponent gets 3 cards exiled, and we can use Vraska's Contempt on Chandra. Let's put the Swamp in the graveyard. Draw a card that's going to be a Syncopate, and the question is whether we want to just main phase Vraska's Contempt. I think I actually don't hate it. This is something that we can recycle. We won't be able to Syncopate the Hazard, for example, but a Bombard Courier is fine. Rekindling Phoenix. Alright, that one is much more problematic. Okay, so that one can be dealt with a Fatal Push. Our opponent has 3 cards, so yep, it looks like he is going to discard his 3 cards. Upgrades and Fight with Fire. Alright, that's definitely good for us since we have the Torrential Gearhulk. Let's put this into our library and transform Search for Azcanta. So Settle the Wreckages are going to be quite decent. I believe we can just end the turn. Okay. So I think since our opponent doesn't really have any more creatures, just going to Torrential Gearhulk and use the Vraska's Contempt again. On the Rekindling Phoenix. So we are up to 14 life. Our opponent just has one card. We've got more Contempts and Settles. So that's going to be quite okay for us, I suppose. And I think I'm going to keep the Irrigated Farmland to cycle it away, in case our opponent doesn't play out anything too spectacular. Alright, so let's use Search for Azcanta. What do we want? I think an Essence Scatter is going to be nice. Cycle away the Irrigated Farmland. Alright. So I think we've got the full house. Just going to continue beating down. End the turn. And if I were our opponent, probably wouldn't really bother to play out this game to the end, but it's fine. He's going to get an additional card, but honestly speaking, already at 10 life, I don't see this too threatening. So, a Teferi. Not a bad card. Has settled the wreckage, so let's go ahead and attack. Play out the Teferi.
Sorry I'm late.
Go for +1, draw an additional card. Likely going to discard the Syncopate since our opponent already has 7. Another Gearhulk. That's good. Alright. Our opponent has Shock. We're going to let it resolve. 2 damage is fine. Okay. And a turn. Discard the Syncopate. Alright. Do we Essence Scatter here? I think we do. And our opponent needs something spectacular, because next turn he is dead to the Gearhulk. Attacks for 1. Discards the hand. Has 2 cards now, so a Bombed Courier. Well, I'm guessing our opponent has lost. Alright, we're going first. I think I can still keep this even though I don't have the Disallow. Right, our opponent mulligans once. Let's play out the planes. Blue from the opponent. Fair enough. We're going to answer in kind and do the same. Instead is going to be a Warkite Marauder. Interesting. So this might be actually something like a favorable winds deck with a lot of flyers. Okay, a Siren Storm Tamer. That's fine. We just need to watch out for the favorable winds. And we cannot use Settle the Wreckage if our opponent has at least one blue mana open. So do we allow this to resolve? I think so, yeah. Let's get our Isolated Chapel in. And I'm thinking I could actually just get rid of the Siren Storm Tamer. Now we're just going to bluff our opponent into thinking we do have an instant. Me taking out the Siren Storm Tamer should be a very good signal to our opponent that we do have a Settle the Wreckage. Okay. Our opponent gets to draw a card. Another Storm Tamer. Well, next turn we could go for Settle the Wreckage. He sacrifices the Storm Tamer and then we get it back with a Torrential Gear Hulk. So that is an option. And I'm thinking more and more that this is the only real option we have. Yes, yes. I know that the Siren Storm Tamer, if you sacrifice it, is going to protect you. Fumigate would be really helpful right about now. Our opponent is running the counters down quite quickly. Just don't tell me you have more Siren Storm Tamers. Alright, Warkite Marauders don't mean much. Let's see if our opponent is just going to attack into us again with everything. He does need to attack at least with the Warkite Marauder if the Curious Obsession is to survive. But our opponent might have a counterspell, and if he does, then we have lost. If he doesn't, we might have a chance. So, counterspell, Siren Lookout. Just don't take 1 million years, come on. Okay, I guess. He simply played out the Nimble Obstructionist, so he won't be able to use it. Meanwhile, I will. Does he have a counterspell for Settle the Wreckage for 1? He might have. Has Unsummon. Okay. Alright, just going to casually attack with the Hulk. We are on a 3-turn clock. So let's see if we can get into more removal. Okay, we're going to take 3. He's not going to do anything else. Alright. Let's use the Glimmer of Genius. So I think that Teferi is not going to be too bad. This increases our chances. And I think I did scry down Disallow. What are the chances that we were going to get another one? But in any case, let's go ahead and attack our opponent for 5. Let's get Teferi going so that we can untap some of our cards. Okay, so +1 Teferi. Hopefully another Settle the Wreckage is on its way. Instead it's going to be a Glacial Fortress, and we're going to play it out. So this way we have enough for an Essence Scatter and the Disallow. Okay, this one we can use the Disallow on. And then we still have the Essence Scatter. Storm Tamer. Alright, that one we're going to allow to enter the battlefield. Let our opponent attack us and bring us down to 2 life. Storm Tamers, so many of them. I definitely wouldn't mind another Fumigate or something. So over here it's a question of whatever we want Teferi to bounce the Nimble Obstructionist. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to attack with the Hulk. Our opponent is down to 5. We are going to try and get Teferi in the library. And if he counters this with the Siren Storm Tamer, we've more or less lost. A Nimble Obstructionist, so we're going to go for the Essence Cutter. And we still keep up the Disallow and the Essence Cutter, so our opponent made a mistake. And we've got both the Disallow and the Essence Cutter that we can use. But our Torrential Gear Hulk has lethal, so I really wonder what our opponent's plan is. A Tempest Djinn. Just going to Essence Scatter it. And Settle the Wreckage. So let's go ahead and attack. And if our opponent doesn't have a block, it's going to be game. Okay, we are going first against Team Fish. So it's quite risky to keep this, but let's just see how it goes. Let's play out the Irrigated Farmland untapped, so that we'll be able to get the Glacial Fortress should we need to. Okay, green from the opponent, so let's play out the Submerged Boneyard, which is our only source of black at the moment. Interesting. A lot of elves. Okay. Let's play out the Irrigated Farmland tapped. That'll push the elves. And hope that we have delayed our opponent's ramp into something greater and worse. Thunderherd Migration. Alright. We're going to let it resolve. Our opponent is going to ramp, so he's going to get a red mana source. That suits us just fine. And amazingly, we were not able to draw a single land so far. Well, let's find out what our opponent was ramping into. A Glorybringer. Alright, that's definitely a decent target for Censor, since we get good value of countering the Glorybringer for only 2 mana. Field of Ruin suits us just fine. So let's see what our opponent has. Another Glorybringer. Okay, I'm really considering just taking some damage here. I think I don't mind taking 4 at this point, just to go for the Glimmer of Genius. That's something we want to do. So, not a Glacial Fortress, probably no. Not at the current moment. Alright. So I think I'm willing to just let our opponent play whatever he wants. Use Settle the Wreckage, and then we can recycle Settle the Wreckage without Torrential Gearhulk. And we have Fumigates in case our opponent has something scary. Okay. Carnage Tyrant. Should I take another 4? I think I'm actually willing to take another 4. Okay, Vraska's Contempt. Good for us. Alright. Let's go for Settle the Wreckage. Our opponent is going to cast the Carnage Tyrant. Yep. I think we're going to use 1 Fumigate. Because it's sorcery speed. And gain 1 life off of it. And we've got ways to deal with non-hexproof creatures. Alright. How many Glorybringers does he have? This is already the 3rd Glorybringer. Another Settle the Wreckage. Our opponent is going to be a little mad. I'm willing to just wait for our opponent to play out some more creatures, otherwise I'm just going to Settle the Wreckage. He draws an additional card from Sweltering Suns. That's fine. We don't have another black mana source for our Vraska's Contempt. And now we have Disallow. because we have enough mana for it. Thrashing Brontodon. I think we're going to let that one resolve. And Raging Raptors. Okay. So I'm guessing I'm ready for Fumigate and search for Azcanta. Yes, I'm indeed ready. But we have to Fumigate first so that our opponent doesn't sacrifice the Thrashing Brontodon. Okay. Then we can recycle our Settle the Wreckages with our Torrential Gearhulk. I doubt our opponent is going to be able to deal 11 damage with haste. And we'll be able to transform our Fumigate, our search for Azcanta. So, another search. Alright, let's put it in our library and transform. So yeah, just going to say go. I think we might want to go for Glimmer here, although just 2 damage. I think I'm fine just taking the damage here. Let's see what else our opponent comes up with. A Raging Regisaur. Okay, I guess. So, a Syncopate. Alright. Let's go for a search for Azcanta. And then we're going to Torrential Gearhulk into Settle the Wreckage. We've still got the Vraska's Contempt as soon as we get an actual swamp. Okay, this goes into our library. And the turn. A lot of our elves are fine. Okay, let's use Azcanta. I think getting Teferi is also not going to be that bad. Get some additional card draw. Alright, this is another black mana source that we were looking for and missing. So let's play out Teferi. We get to draw a card and untap 2 lands. Another Vraska's Contempt is definitely welcome. I think we just press on with the attack. And if our opponent doesn't block, he's on a 2-turn clock. Channel Initiate, that is fine. Because our opponent already has all the ramp in the world. Okay. That's also fine. Let's use Azcanta then. We can deal with the channel and initiate with the Feral Push, right? So that's exactly what we are going to do. We can even do this right now. Here comes the Feral Push. So our opponent is not going to have a block on. Yep, another Torrential Gear Hulk is definitely something we want. Alright, let's go ahead and attack. Our opponent is now at 5. Use Teferi's ability
Keep up the pace.
and draw an additional card. Use the Azcanta because we can untap it with Teferi's ability. Get ourselves a cast down. And the turn. Untap. And the turn and discard the Syncopate, since right about now it seems almost impossible for our opponent to claw his way out of this, and that's a good game. So we are going first. We've got a lot of tap lands, actually all of them are, but let's keep this and see if we can survive and land the search for Azcanta and draw into the relevant spells. A Herald from the opponent, so that much is fine. I think we're just going to go for the Azcanta here. Alright, double blue. A Curious Obsession, so that becomes an excellent target for our Feral Push. Let's put this into the graveyard, since it's tap land. What we need are the untap lands. Alright. Irrigated Farmland can enter the battlefield. It enters the battlefield tapped. I think I'm willing to just use the Feral Push while our opponent doesn't have mana up, so that he is not able to draw additional cards. Okay. So this one also goes to the graveyard. We've got 6 mana in our hand. So I'm quite willing to just play the tap lands right now. Our Drowned Catacomb and the Isolated Chapel are going to come into play untapped. So let's see. Disallow. We're going to keep the Disallow. Play out the Catacomb, and we are not in any immediate threat, so I'm just not going to play out anything. Throne. Alright. You need creatures for the throne to work, so I'm fine with taking one more. And we take one more from the throne. Graveyard. Alright, we've got the Isolated Chapel, which means that we might risk it, but I think I'm not going to. I'm willing to wait for one more turn, because our opponent might have a counterspell up. A Slither Blade. Okay. Alright. Now, moment of truth. Let's see if our opponent has a counterspell. Yes, indeed. So we're going to get hit for 4. And now we really need some more removal spells. Something like a Fumigate would be most excellent. Okay, indeed. We don't have enough for Disallow, but I'm guessing we're not really high on options right now. Good. And we have more targeted removal in the Vraska's Contempt. So our opponent won't be able to save his creatures with the Siren Stone Tamer. Graveyard for the island, transform the Search for Azcanta, draw a card. He's going to sacrifice the Field of Ruins, so we are going to use Search for Azcanta in response once. Let's get ourselves a Fumigate. That's going to be quite good. Could probably have used the Disallow, but I'm fine with this. So we've got white, blue and black. We've really got everything we need. I think we have stabilized quite nicely. So any spells? No spells. So we get to use the Glimmer of Genius. 2 Fields of Ruin. Our opponent really has only basic islands, so having more of cast downs suits us just fine. I think we can safely use the cast down right here. Another Trickster. Another Trickster is also fine. We've got the Feral Push for the Trickster, and we get to use the removal that we have in our hand. Ethersphere Harvester. Okay. That one is going to get disallowed. Alright, Torrential Gearhulk. We're probably going to flash it in for our Glimmer of Genius. Alright, we can probably Essence Scatter this. We're going to draw plenty of cards with the Torrential Gearhulk anyway. Okay. Let's use the Glimmer. Scry 2, scry this to the bottom. Alright, we got ourselves some nifty tools. Another Gearhulk is also quite excellent. So our opponent is now on the clock. We've got lots of spells that we can recycle, and it's a good game. I'd like to thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.